Good morning. This is Dylan Jovine with Behind the Markets. I cannot believe it is Thursday, August 15th. Holy mackerel. So, wow, this year is just flying by. So, the CPI was the big number this week. It came out yesterday, basically in line with expectations, which is good news. But it's funny, while the CPI was coming out, another piece of information also. Hey, by the way, the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, came in at 0.2, which is basically in line with expectations. And it really talks to a cooling economy. You know, that inflation argument is starting to move away as we predicted. We're moving towards more of a slowdown scenario here, which gives incentive for the Fed to cut rates. And a lot of people are hoping the Fed cuts rates 50 basis points in September. Again, I don't see the need for that. 25 basis points to me is the number really to speak to that, because we still have housing prices that are really high. We still have so many things that are just going against us. And another thing that popped in the news, is split screen for me. As the CPI number is coming out, the debt number, just came out. U.S. government, and I wrote some notes here, U.S. government deficit hit a 1.5 trillion in the first 10 months of 2024. In July alone, the deficit reached a whopping $244 billion. It's really unbelievable. And of course, U.S. public debt just hit 35.1 trillion. This is another all-time high. And federal debt, this is the thing that really shocked me. Federal debt increased by $100 billion in the last 2 days. $100 billion in 2 days. If this pace continues, it's going to hit $36 trillion in 20 days and $40 trillion by the end of 2024 if this pace continues. I mean, this is crisis levels. Government spending is at crisis levels. We are spending money as if we are fighting Nazi Germany and Japan at the same time, which again, as I've talked about many times here, you're spending the money like a drunken sailor. When times are going well, you're depleting your balance sheet for when things go bad, when there's a real crisis. For example, China invades Taiwan. Russia actually moves tanks into Europe. Something that is an existential threat to us. Just watching the split screen as everybody focuses on the CPI, the Fed's in a really, really tight box, because at the end of the day, they want to keep things like housing prices lower. They want to really kind of move this away, but they're balancing, inflation with employment. The employment numbers are getting weaker. So look, government spending is the thing that I am focused most on. They are going to have to figure out how to cut government spending. I've said this before, whoever wins the election, no matter who wins the election, there is 5 trillion with a T of taxes, of spending that is happening next year automatically, that is actually going to come off books. And most of that is from the Trump tax cuts. And some of it, $1.5 trillion, is from Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, which is going to slow down in spending. So that is going to force the next president of the United States to make a very, very difficult choice. Do you actually let Trump's tax cuts expire and kind of get our fiscal health back in order a little bit? Or do you let them keep running to keep this spending binge going? And you guys should know by now what camp that I am in. So anyway, the CPI comes in pretty much as expected. My bet is the Fed lowers rates by 25 basis points. But, again, split screen with that, we see that, we have just crossed 35.1 trillion in debt, and federal debt increased by 100 billion in the last 2 days. That is just shocking to me. Anyway, have a great Thursday, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.